Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RFP Success Show, where we connect you to strategies and resources to help you win more RFPs. I am your host, Lisa Rehurick, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success and passionate about helping small businesses win at business. And today we have the fabulous Heather Cox. Heather,
Yay.
yay! Heather is a tireless advocate for diversity. She is a business executive, seminar director, public speaker, and marketer whose business venture is helping to make the business world more closely resemble the real world. She has co-founded Certify My Company after her own frustrating exposure to the Women Business Enterprise certification process opened her eyes to the challenges facing small, diverse businesses. So we are here to talk all about that and small, diverse business certification. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here.
I know, it's so exciting to have you. And I love talking about certification because I feel like it's one of these things that's like uh, uh, a little bit elusive, right? I was certified for, I don't know, 5 years before I really even understood what my
What
certification
it was.
was. And
you know,
part of that was because I met you.
what's so funny is in my head, because I'm like so immersed in this world, I think everybody knows about it. And then
Yeah.
I'll go to an event that's a non-diversity event, which is now where I'm spending most of my time. And people are like, oh, so you write grants? I'm like, yeah, no, nothing to do with that. And so it's really been an interesting education and kind of transformation of my own business, meeting with not people who are not familiar with the supplier diversity world, because
Yeah.
I just assumed everyone knew about it.
Yeah, not at all. And even I think the
Right.
people that are certified like me, we're still kind of tunnel vision in this little bucket of why we got certified and what it even means.
And what to do with it.
And what to do with it, because there's so much out there. I mean, I keep calling it an ecosystem.
Right.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Pamela Williamson,
Oh, I
and
love that.
yeah,
She's
and
great. I love her.
she's fabulous, and she talked a lot about a whole bunch of this stuff too in a different context, right? So let's kick this off by talking about what even is small diverse business certification, and what the heck are we even talking about?
So first of all, we're going to divide that up, because there's small business and there's diverse business. Now,
Ooh.
some organizations like the state of New York, they'll actually require that the company is both small and diverse, right? The women-owned small business, which is the federal government's classification, requires that you're a small and a woman-owned business.
See, I
But
didn't even know they were two different things. Duh.
right. So small business is really about, has to do with your NAICS code, right, which is your classification code, and it's based on your gross sales and or the number of employees you have. For diversity, it's based on your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual orientation, your disability. So there's I call them the big five now, right?
Okay.
So it's women, minority, LGBT, veteran, and disabled. And then there's the service disabled veteran, which kind of combines those last two. And the diversity is confirming that the company that we're talking about, whatever company in question, is both owned, operated, and controlled by a member of one of those demographics.
And that's a really key differentiator right there, that controlled
Right.
piece, right? Because I'll talk to people that say,
Right.
I'm going to put the business in my wife's name.
Oh,
So
don't get me started with that one.
I just talked to somebody about this the other day, and I was like, you can't do that. You need to talk to my friend Heather. So
Yeah.
why can't they do that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So the reason that these certifications were started was because corporations really started to understand that doing business with diverse demographics really increases your return on your investment with your supply chain, adds money to the communities, adds tax dollars to the communities, adds jobs to communities. And so if you're just saying that I can tell you all day long I'm a Black-owned business, tell me I'm not, right? I can self-identify
Right.
all day long. But without the certification, you have to rely on someone's word. And unfortunately, when money gets involved, oftentimes people are willing to say whatever they need to say to get the gig,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yes.
certification really proves that you are exactly who you say you are, that not only are you running the show, that you're in control of the show, legally speaking, on your documentation, as well as on a day-to-day basis in the company, right? So you can't just transfer ownership, because that's totally not legit. She's just on paper. She's
Yeah.
not assuming the risks and responsibilities of running that company, right? And the organizations that we talked about, the big five especially, they will sniff you out fast.
I was just going to say that, like, they do their diligence. This is not
Right.
like some, you send in some paperwork and they take your word for it. Because I know they
Right.
come out every year and do a house visit with me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
every year, it's a year in the beginning, and then every 2 to 3 years, they're going to come to the office just to make sure that nothing's changed. But every year, they're going to check your documentation. Now, some organizations like the NGLCC and USBLN, which is the disabled one, will do it every other year. But you
Okay.
still have to submit paperwork to show that you really are who you say you are, and that, because a lot can change in a business in a year.
It's true. It's true. And just for the listeners, when I say house visit, it's because I have a home office. They don't
Right.
come to your house. I have a
And
home
they
office.
don't care.
They don't care,
care if
yeah,
it's
but
your
they'll
dining
come.
room table, your car, a 7-story building. They don't care where your office is. They're very aware that businesses today can sit wherever they need to sit.
I
There's
wonder
no
if they'd
worry.
visit me on the beach in Hawaii if that's where my office was.
If that's where your office was, they like actually get a lot of people fighting for that chance, for that site visit actually. But I'll do
Yeah, I
it.
can
I'm in.
imagine. Yes, I'm in. So
Right.
I have a really basic question for you because I was having this conversation with somebody who I thought should go and get their women business certification. And when I was talking about supply chain, they were even asking, what does that mean? So let's go basic and talk about what does supply chain even mean?
So supply chain at the most basic level is the services and goods a company buys. So whether it be marketing services, janitorial goods, toilet paper, HVAC, whatever a corporation, large or small, buys, whether it be goods or services, that is their supply chain. And the
Awesome.
suppliers who sell it to them, that's the supply chain, right?
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah, so that's great clarification. So now we've got both government and corporations that use these certifications, right?
Yes, yes, there are, and they're different. So the government, and this is one of the first questions I ask clients when we start working together is, who is your target audience, right? Because there are a plethora of certifications out there.
Yeah.
You could spend your entire life and your entire bank account getting certified. I don't recommend that path for most
Right.
people,
Yes.
because my goal is always to give clients the most bang for their buck with the certification they're going to get. So if they're targeting the Javits Center and that's going to be their biggest client, then you need to get the state of New York certification. If you're targeting the city of Chicago, you need to get the city of Chicago certification, or the EDGE from Illinois or from Ohio, one of those certifications. If you're targeting Target, Pfizer, Merck, one of those guys, then the WeBank, the NMSDC, those big five I mentioned earlier, those are going to be the best certification for you. So you can be chugging along. If you're private sector focused, and by private sector, I mean the Fortune 1000 community and then their suppliers down the line, then you can start out doing business with them, right? And let's say 10 years in, I say, I'm going to go ahead and go for this government business in the state of New York. Well, now you have to get a separate certification. Some states will actually allow you to do a fast track, but not all of them, right? And it's a lot of rules and requirements around that fast track opportunity. You can check into that. We can help guide people, but some of them will actually let you do a fast track certification. If you're doing the WeBank certification, I always tell people, if you're eligible for WOSB, which is the Women-Owned Small Business, which is technically the federal government small business verification for women,
okay,
do it, because they are given third-party authority, and it's one extra document.
Oh.
So if you're eligible, do it, because then you're done with that. It's there. And there was actually just an article that came out today that was talking about how because the SBA still allows self-identification, there has been a lot of fraud with them.
Oh, SBA being Small Business Administration, by the way. Yep.
Right. So there's been a lot of fraud in that, which is just demonstrates the reason why certification is so important in the business world.
Wow.
So when they were smart enough to outsource it, so if you have a WeBank WOSB or an NWBOC and you get your WOSB through them, and I'm throwing out acronyms, I apologize. Like just letters. They don't even mean anything anymore. It's just letters.
Yeah.
It's actually a stronger classification because you've had that site visit done with WeBank when you did your WeBank certification.
Well, it's interesting. So, and when she's talking about WeBank, it's Women Business Enterprise National Council. It's the one that certifies women in the Women Business Certification.
Right.
I actually got my certification because people ask me this all the time. So I want to toss this in here is I got my certification because I had a client, a large corporation who had a state client who required them to subcontract with certified women business enterprises. So
Right.
I got my WeBank certification, and then I got certified as a small business in the state
Correct.
that they of their client, their state
Right.
client. And
Right.
so I wanted to just toss that in there. So me as a consultant, basically, that's how I'm using it and how that came to be. There's a lot of subcontractor opportunities
Right.
with the larger corporations as well. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes, I'd love to actually.
Yeah.
So a few things. So in addition to that, who's your target audience? Sometimes they'll say like, well, both. I don't know. This particular client asked me to get certified. So sometimes
Yeah.
I'll say, send me the RFP or send me the bid that you're looking at, because oftentimes they'll tell you which certification that specific contract recognizes, because certification is
Yes.
contract specific, right?
Okay. Good to know.
So a lot of times it'll just depend on the contract you're bidding on, which certification you want to get first and foremost, right?
Yep.
So for example, MGM Resorts International is a fantastic advocate for women-owned businesses, minority-owned business, LGBT, all of the demographics. And so they primarily accept the big five that we talked about.
Yep.
But when they were building their National Harbor project out in Maryland, the state of Maryland required a specific certification for that region. Right?
Okay.
So sometimes you have to get multiple. It depends on your
Yeah.
client. And that's why I tell people it's about the relationship. So sometimes people will
Yes.
say to me like, it's just a box for them to check. Why should I do it? And I'm like, no. So first of all, there's a lot you can do with it as a business development tool, first of all.
Seriously, yes.
Second of all, we all have competitors, regardless of who we are. We want to make sure that we have the most positive, like if you're having dinner with somebody, if you're both not full at the end of that meal, it was not a successful meal.
Right.
Right? When you're in a relationship with a corporate client or any client, you need to make sure you're both constantly receiving benefits from that relationship. So if they say like, yeah, they're good, we've had great service, but this guy over here also seems good, and his people say they've been giving good service, and he's certified through one of the other organizations, that's a differentiator which may make you lose your contract.
That's a great point. And there is so much to consider, right?
Right.
Before I ask you the next question, I want you to repeat those big five, because we talked about them right at the onset of the call, and then we keep talking about them. So just for our listeners' sake, let's repeat the top five again.
Okay, so it's WeBank, which is the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, and
Awesome.
They are the certification for women-owned businesses, right?
Yep.
Owned, operated, and controlled is what I mean by that.
Yes.
There's NMSDC, which is the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and they certify ethnic minority owned, operated, and controlled businesses.
Love it.
There's the NGLCC, which is the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. They certify LGBT owned, operated, and controlled businesses. Okay. Then there is NVBDC. I had to think for a second.
I know. I'm like,
the National Veterans Business Development Council, and they certify veteran and service disabled veteran owned, operated, and controlled businesses.
Okay.
And then the last one is USDLN. Now they are actually changing their name this year.
Really?
The conference is in July in Las Vegas. So come on out, everybody.
Yes,
and
I need to check that out.
I mean, it'll be 123 degrees, but it'll be cool in the hotel.
Exactly. Just don't go outside.
Don't go outside. They're actually changing their name and their logo this year. It's a big secret. They wouldn't tell me. And I said to them, I'm like, I'm glad you told me, because we just got certified this year through them. And I would have been so mad if I printed those logos on our new business cards and they were the old logo.
No kidding.
So I don't know what it's going to be called, but they will still continue to certify disabled, owned, operated, and controlled businesses.
Interesting. So see, I didn't even know that latter one existed.
Oh, and the latter one's an awesome one.
Because I know disabled vets, but I didn't know just disabled. Nice.
So the ADA, and they take their disabled, like what's considered disabled, from the ADA list.
Okay.
Right? The ADA has a lot. It's a fairly long list, and it includes both visible and invisible disabilities.
Okay.
Right? So just because you're not in a wheelchair does not mean you don't qualify. And it is a fantastic, fantastic certification. I was looking at their corporate sponsors, and there's people who don't go to the other conferences.
Oh, interesting.
Right. It's very interesting who comes to them. And also, when you're at WeBank, you're fighting with the other 4,000 WBEs.
Yeah.
Right? It's an amazing conference, WeBank. I love it. I just went there last week. It's awesome. It's just there's less people
Yeah.
at the USDLN at this point, right?
Yep.
And it's growing every year, but they have a fantastic corporate sponsorship base. Amazing. And so there really is, and I tell people all the time, you should look into that certification, because the reason that we did it is I wanted to take away the taboo involved in disabled certification, right?
Yeah.
I don't want, people oftentimes will think, well, can you do the job for me if you're disabled? But disability runs the gamut. And again, it's visible
Totally.
and invisible.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons I decided to certify my company as a disabled owned business, in addition to our WeBank certification.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I think that all the listeners what you should be paying attention to here is that there is like this massive ecosystem.
Yeah,
So it's
I love
not
that
even
term.
just,
Right.
I do too, because it's not even just that you get certified. So again, I got certified and I sat on it I was just using it with this corporation until I ran into WeBank exhibiting. And I was like, well, what are you guys exhibiting here for? And they started telling me about all this stuff, and I found out about the conferences, and I found out
Right.
about all that. And that's actually where I met Heather, is that
Yeah.
I went to one of the regional conferences for WeBank. There are national conferences, regional conferences, local events,
Right.
online events for all of these organizations, and you can get tapped into not just your target clients, but also other entities that are playing in the ecosystem. And
Right.
it's crazy, right?
It is. It's amazing. Just yesterday, and people tend to think that if they're not targeting the big national behemoth organizations, that it's not worth it for them to go or get certified. That's not true, because as you just mentioned, they have prime suppliers that they require to spend money with diverse suppliers. There's other WBEs, other MBEs that work together. I literally just yesterday had a conversation with a company. We did their veteran certification maybe 2 years ago. It was a request from a large tech company in Northern California.
Nice.
And since they got certified, they went from being a vendor to a preferred vendor.
Nice.
And then that large company introduced them to all of their prime suppliers, right? And they said, we got so busy, we had to sub out some things. So they searched for other diverse owned companies to sub out to. So now that large tech company, not only have they impacted this one veteran owned business, but those prime suppliers have impacted that veteran owned business. And that veteran owned business has impacted all these other little diverse suppliers who may have not even had the opportunity to talk to the big behemoths in Northern California.
Yeah. Yeah, right? That's huge. That's the wow factor right there, right?
Right. And that's what I'm talking about, making the business world look more like the real world, right? The real world is not all white, straight male.
Right.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
So, but the business world oftentimes looks that way. Look at the board, look at everything. So by getting more diverse businesses into play, having more female CEOs, Black CEOs, Hispanic CEOs, all the different, disabled CEOs, you make the business world reflect the real world.
Yeah, and I will tell you just from experience within WeBank is that the corporations take it really seriously. They take it very seriously and are very passionate about their supplier diversity.
Right, because it makes them money.
It makes them money, yes. It makes them look good.
That's right. Yes. People go, oh, it's a PR thing. I'm like, no, it's a bottom line thing. It makes them money. Yes. That's why they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. What are some of the pitfalls that people need to avoid when it comes to certification?
So the first one is, if you're not truly eligible for one of the certifications, don't apply, and definitely don't call me. Okay, that's number one. I will just tell you, I can't help you. You're not legit.
Yeah.
Okay, the other pitfalls are, the biggest reason people are denied certification is not because they're not eligible, but because their documentation is incomplete or inaccurate. Okay, so for example, if you, the number, I think 90% of denials that come back to me, they'll say, we got denied, we're referred to you, can you help us figure this out, is based on those bylaws or the operating agreement. Okay. You're a corporation, and you have, in your bylaws state, you have a unanimous requirement in your board of directors, and not all your board of directors are female. You are not eligible for certification if you're trying to get certified through WeBank. Okay.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Right? And don't ask your attorney. I cannot tell you how many people come to me after spending $10,000, $15,000 with their attorneys, only to then still be denied.
Because the
right?
attorney doesn't know. They don't know this whole world.
Right. They don't know. And they'll say, well, so here's a perfect story. I had this company, I was reviewing their bylaws, and I said, just so you know, so it was her, she was 100% owner. So everyone said, oh, no problem, she'll get certified. She's 100% owner. But on her board was her and 3 men, right?
Oh.
Her bylaws specifically said that the board of directors can sell assets, can bind the company, can do a whole litany of things. Now,
Wow.
it also says the quorum, which makes decisions, right, for your board of directors,
Yep.
was a majority of directors. So what's the majority of 4? 3.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's 3 men. So I said to her, they can make decisions about you. She's like, well, they wouldn't. I'm like, that's cool. But if they
That
did,
doesn't count. Yeah.
right. And I said, let's say you go to Africa. Let's say you run a big enough company, you could actually take 2-week vacation.
Yep.
Okay. She goes to Africa for 2 weeks. She's off the grid. She comes back and she's like, where's all my big equipment? Well, the board sold it. So they're like, well, she'll fire them. That's cool. But that contract's legally binding and half your company is sold now.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? So not only is the certification amazing because of the business development opportunities, but it is a fantastic housekeeping opportunity, right?
That's
it is
very
a fantastic tool to make sure all your documents are lined up. So making sure those tax returns